Realme Neo 8 is definitely an eye-catching smartphone, especially thanks to its standout rear design. Sitting in the 300 to 400 pound price bracket, it brings some impressive features to the table, including a telephoto camera, a Samsung 165Hz display, and a back panel that really sets it apart. Pair all that with the widely praised Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 chipset, and it's easy to see why this phone is getting so much attention. But how does it actually hold up in real-world use? A quick shout out to my tech partner from China for sharing this video. A big thank you for making this possible. Hey everyone, it's Maiky from Maiky. If you love staying updated with the latest gadgets, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our exciting tech content. For many people, myself included, this Samsung panel feels a bit unfamiliar. It's a 165Hz Samsung Sky display using the newer M14 luminous material, which honestly leans toward the lower end. From my experience, the screen looks better at medium to higher brightness levels than it does at low brightness. That said, considering the price, there aren't any serious problems to complain about. Right now, you still can't have both ultra-high resolution and ultra-high refresh rates at the same time, and this phone follows that trend with its 1.5K display. The bezel layout is pretty standard for today's market, and the black borders are exactly what you'd expect in this segment, resulting in a clean and balanced front appearance. I'm curious what rating you'd personally give its front design. Turning the phone around, I went with the white version, which is easily my favorite out of the three available colors. The mechanical style embossed pattern, combined with the camera layout and transparent cube buckle element, makes the back look genuinely unique. There's also an RGB ring officially called the Awakening Halo, and it's not just different, it actually looks really cool. With the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 processor working alongside a massive 8,000 mAh battery life is predictably strong. I ran 3 days of testing across 3 scenarios, starting each time from a full charge and powered off state, and the results are shown in the image. Compared to the OnePlus Ace 6T, gaming endurance could still be improved, but overall performance is already very solid. In my simulated heavy use test, after 4 hours of intense activity, the phone still had 50.89% battery left. Based on that result, you're looking at around 8 hours and 8 minutes of continuous heavy usage, which is impressive. Even so, I still feel gaming efficiency could be better. After a 5-hour stress test focused mainly on gaming, there was still 33.23% battery remaining. All things considered, its endurance easily ranks among the best available right now. As for charging, the 80-watt wired fast charging takes about 61 minutes to reach a full 100%. At the moment, combining huge batteries with ultra-fast charging isn't really possible, so this setup reflects current industry standards. Performance-wise, most of us already know what to expect from the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5. I've tested this chip extensively before, and Genshin Impact runs smoothly here as well. During a 70-minute session, the final 40 minutes of recorded gameplay showed an average frame rate of 60 FPS with mouse interaction, while power consumption averaged 4.59 watts. The rendering resolution hovered around 881p, which posed no issues. With the room temperature at roughly 24 degrees Celsius, the highest temperature on the front reached 42.2 degrees, while the back peaked at 42.6 degrees. This confirms that the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 delivers strong performance for its price without relying on excessive power draw to maintain smooth gameplay. Like other phones using this chipset, the Star Iron processor isn't optimized for higher rendering resolution, so it currently tops out at around 770p. In a 40-minute golden moment map test, the average frame rate came in at 59 FPS, with power usage rising to 6.06 watts. Under this heavier load, frame stability wasn't particularly impressive. Temperatures climbed to 45 degrees on the front and 45.4 degrees on the back. Because of this, I think the thermal management could be tuned more aggressively, or rather, the system's default performance scheduling still has room to be pushed further. Thankfully, there are multiple performance panels available that let you manually adjust settings if you want a more aggressive experience. Due to time limitations, I couldn't run full comparisons across those modes, but it's worth mentioning for anyone who likes to tweak performance. In other areas, it also supports 165Hz gaming, similar to what iQOO offers, since it's now officially part of the iQOO ecosystem and has expanded its lineup of 165Hz devices. On top of that, the 165Hz display is backward compatible with 144 FPS games. There's even a handheld mode, which lets you play Steam games directly on your phone. If that sounds interesting, it's definitely something worth trying out. Photography is another strong point for this price range, especially thanks to the 50 megapixel through-the-window Periscope telephoto camera. I don't have the GT8 with me, so I compared it against the GT8 Pro using main camera white-click samples. This is always a tough scene to shoot, and here the GT8 Pro clearly performs better both in fine detail and noise control. The Neo 8 does fall behind the GT8 Pro in this case. The second batch of photos shows the same result, with the GT8 Pro's main camera still coming out on top. Because of that, I mainly focused on comparing the telephoto shots and white-click samples for detail. The Neo 8 applies stronger sharpening, while the GT8 Pro keeps things more natural. In the second set of zoomed-in shots, the difference in detail isn't huge. The same goes for another daytime zoom comparison. The gap isn't very obvious there either. Looking at the first group of night samples, the Neo 8 actually performs really well. For its price, the level of detail is still quite impressive. That said, when you put it side by side with the GT8 Pro, you can clearly see the difference in nighttime resolution. In the second zoom night set, the GT8 Pro once again delivers better overall detail. In scenes with decent ambient lighting, the Neo 8 can still capture usable photos, but its detail is noticeably weaker than the GT8 Pro. When it comes to 10x zoom at night, the difference becomes even more obvious, especially in smaller images. The GT8 Pro's night performance is on another level, while the Neo 8 struggles at 10x in low light. During daytime 10x zoom, the Neo 8 shows more aggressive algorithm processing, which leads to visible blurring in fine details. Still, it handles daylight much better than nighttime. So overall, considering the price, its telephoto lens is actually more competitive than its main camera. On the software side, the system now feels like a direct copy of ColorOS, which makes sense given Realme's return to Oppo and the capabilities of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5. Day-to-day smoothness isn't an issue at all, especially with the new interrupt animations, which feel extremely fluid. Visual effects have also been refined, and the liquid glass look is still present, giving it a flagship-like feel. Once high frame rate mode is turned on, most apps run at high refresh rates, except music and video apps, which default to 90 Hz. Games that support 165 Hz automatically run at a 165 FPS, while some everyday apps don't support 165 FPS, like OnePlus certain games definitely do. During gaming tests, I mentioned earlier that the temperature limit or performance scheduling could be more aggressive. When the phone hit around 45 degrees Celsius and I ran a star iron test while browsing Weibo to check system stability, the Neo 8 started stuttering, jumping from 120 FPS down to 60 FPS, clearly hitting its thermal limit. Shortly after, it switched back to a 90 FPS strategy. That's why I feel the performance tuning could be pushed a bit more, especially since the overall device temperature isn't actually that high. In terms of AI features, there are still some gaps compared to flagship phones. For example, the little memory function doesn't yet support full video viewing and summarization. The Neo 8 also lacks AI real-world conversation support for now, though it does include the new AI podcast feature, which is genuinely useful for commuting. I also want to give Realme some credit for system improvements. In the past, Realme phones, especially budget models, came with ad folders. Now the Neo 8 doesn't have an ad folder at all, and even the ad placements inside folders are gone. Other hardware highlights include a 3D superhuman-shaped in-display fingerprint scanner, IP66 6869 water resistance, dual-frequency GPS, triple-frequency Beidou navigation satellite system support, dual X-axis linear motors, NFC, infrared, and more. The feature set is pretty stacked, giving the phone a very well-rounded configuration. To sum everything up, while the specs are impressive, what really stands out to me personally is the Neo 8's unique design. With the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 and a massive 8,000 mAh battery, endurance is clearly a strong point, though there's still room for improvement in certain situations. For gaming, Genshin Impact runs at full frame rate without issue. From my own testing, I feel the default thermal throttling could be slightly more aggressive. The telephoto camera is genuinely competitive for this price, and honestly, at this level, having a telephoto lens at all already makes a big difference, which deserves credit. As for the overall system experience, temperature limits do affect stability at times, but thankfully, smoothness and animation transitions aren't heavily impacted. In the end, its biggest selling point is how the frame rate aligns with its pricing once you factor in all these detailed features. That's especially important because adding a telephoto lens raises production costs. Alright, that wraps up today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to join our tech team, and I'll see you next time.